Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Thursday, May 14th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. A little more than 5 months ago, Governor Gavin Newsom was announcing a budget surplus. Now, because of COVID-19, it's just the opposite. More on that in a moment. But first, San Diego County reached 200 deaths from the virus. 113 new cases were also reported following the single biggest testing day yet. It comes as local leaders push for the ability to reopen more quickly. KPBS reporter John Carroll has more.
These are not ordinary times, and as a consequence, this will not be an ordinary budget presentation.
In fact, Governor Newsom says back in January he couldn't imagine he'd be making a presentation like the one he made this afternoon. In January, he was proudly announcing a budget with a surplus of about $6 billion. There was record low unemployment. California's economy was flying high. Then, coronavirus upended everything.
60, 70, 80 days later, in a completely different position. Not just, again, the state of California, but the entire nation.
Now, California's budget shortfall totals a little more than $54 billion. Unlike the federal government, the governor is constitutionally mandated to balance the budget.
The budget we put out today is $133.9 billion general fund, some $203.3 billion overall budget. The general fund reflects a 9.4% decrease from the Budget Act of 2019. The overall budget, about a 5.4% decrease from the 2019 budget.
The numbers are enough to make even a mathematician's eyes glaze over, but the upshot is a $6 billion surplus has now turned into a $54 billion deficit. Still, Newsom says it could be worse.
We enter into this moment in a much better place than we have previously entered into any recessionary moment.
He says that's because the state has managed its finances well over the last decade. He says the Rainy Day Fund is just one of a number of reserve accounts that will help the state close the shortfall. But as he's done a number of times, Newsom insisted the federal government must do its part to help. He again called on Congress to pass the so-called HEROES Act, which will fund state and local governments, think police, fire, and healthcare workers, to the tune of a couple $1 trillion. Newsom says that would make 26% of the budgeted cuts unnecessary.
If the federal government does what it must do under the circumstances to help states, large and small, all across this nation, that these cuts would go away.
From the county today, a push for more local control to open up more quickly.
Our goal is to work aggressively within that process and submit alternative data that we believe supports an accelerated reopening.
Cox also announced a new program for seniors who need food assistance. It's called Great Plates. It's for seniors who aren't eligible for other food assistance programs. You can call the Assistance Center at 211 for more information. John Carroll, KPBS News.
The coronavirus pandemic has forced deep cuts across the board, and education spending was not spared. KPBS education reporter Joe Hong has the details.
Ambitious plans for universal preschool and increased funding for special education have been put on hold due to the economic disaster brought on by the pandemic.
Series of specific proposals that we made in January. The overwhelming majority of those proposals we are now pulling back. Those are enhancements to the baseline budget.
Newsom said local school districts will be receiving about 10% less money from the state, which means tens of millions in cuts for large districts like San Diego Unified. But targeted funding for low-income students, foster children, and English learners won't be reduced.
We're not going to touch the categoricals or the supplementals, so we have an equity lens in terms of our approach, another value we hold dear.
In total, the state will cut $19 billion from Proposition 98 funding, which guarantees that 40% of the state's budget goes to education. But Newsom said his administration is taking steps to lessen the pain.
We are committing to taking 1.5% of the general fund, averaging about $2 billion a year, going up to $4.6 billion a year, to do a supplemental payment under Prop 98.
San Diego Unified Board member Richard Barrera said district officials spent the afternoon poring over the budget proposal to get a better sense of the impact on the district. Even before the pandemic, the district was looking to cut $84 million from its budget. Barrera agreed with Newsom's main point of emphasis during today's press conference. The federal government has to do more.
If the federal government does what it must do under the circumstances to help states, large and small, all across this nation, that these cuts would go away.
Joe Hong, KPBS News.
San Diego County health officials are softening their stance on casinos' plans to reopen next week. Yesterday, Dr. Wilma Wooten said she did not agree with the decision, but that was before she met with representatives from local tribal nations this morning. Wooten now says she is reviewing the casino's plans and will provide guidance. She acknowledged that tribal nations have sovereign authority and said the county will continue to work with them. Siquan, Valley View, and Viejas have announced dates to reopen next week. This week, the state released guidelines for how restaurants will be able to safely reopen for dine-in service. But KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman spoke to a pair of San Diego restaurant owners who are not ready to go back to the way things were.
We've transformed this entire front of our restaurant to serve out of our front door, out of a window, and we have our delivery drivers over there so that people can maintain distance. We can get out great barbecue.
Sean Walchef owns Cali Comfort BBQ in Spring Valley. For 12 years, the majority of his business was dine-in, but 2 months ago, coronavirus restrictions closed dining rooms.
We really didn't know what we were going to be doing. You know, we were going to be doing delivery and takeout, and it was pretty much a brand new business.
Walchef has been using social media and his website to build up takeout and delivery sales, and he isn't looking to reopen his dining room anytime soon.
There's so much uncertainty out there. The only thing that we can control is what we know. And what we know right now is that what we're doing has been working. It's safe, it's effective.
It's unclear when dine-in restaurants could reopen in San Diego County, but for Walchef, it's just not worth the risk right now.
We operate on very thin margins, and for us, we want to do something that's safe, and we don't really know what safe is, even with the new guidelines that have come out.
Walchef understands some people want to go back out to eat at restaurants, but don't be surprised when the green light is given to reopen if some businesses aren't jumping at the opportunity.
That will happen. We just have to give it time.
We basically let pretty much all our staff go. We were about to close.
When COVID-19 restrictions hit, Bradrick Cooper, aka Coop, says business at his West Texas barbecue in Lemon Grove dropped 60%.
Surprisingly, you know, it's actually gotten to the point where it's okay.
Hey, we're going to be open today till 3 o'clock. Check it out at around 12 o'clock. We should have these turkey legs to be ready for y'all.
Using social media and for the first time partnering with delivery services,
we have an order for Durania DoorDash.
Coop has been able to build up his takeout business, and
we might just continue to just do carryout even if they do open it up. I take this coronavirus very seriously. I want to limit the possibility of spreading it.
State guidelines suggest increasing sanitation and ventilation measures, as well as installing barriers where maintaining social distancing is difficult. But
the restaurant business is one of the toughest businesses. It has the most narrow profit margin out there. So when we have to start spending money for ventilation systems and, you know, all these other procedures that's going to take place, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough.
Restaurant owners say regulators allowing to-go alcohol sales has helped increase sales, and they appreciate the community's support during this uncertain time. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
San Diego County's unemployment rate is now at a record high. According to a report by the San Diego Association of Governments, it reached 28.7%. More than 34,000 people lost their jobs from April 25th until May 2nd, before the governor issued an order to open some industries. Today, the Department of Labor reported nearly 3 million more Americans filed for unemployment benefits last week. That brings the total to 36.5 million since mid-March. Families struggling financially got a chance to pick up free groceries in Paradise Hills today. The event was hosted by the People's Alliance for Justice, which has held 4 food distributions. The group planned to serve at least 500 families today. A Department of Homeland Security official visited San Diego to assess the COVID situation near the border. KPBS health reporter Taryn Mento says the development comes weeks after local hospitals and elected officials pleaded for help.
South Bay hospitals have been inundated with COVID patients, largely linked to authorized border crossings of American expats and essential workers. County Supervisor Kristen Gaspar wrote one of 2 letters last month seeking federal help. Gaspar says the DHS senior medical officer visited San Diego this past weekend to discuss options. That may include using federal funds for a possible pop-up medical facility at the San Ysidro border crossing,
where we could provide free health screening and testing to individuals that are part of that essential workforce. We also could better triage people that came across the border that were symptomatic.
The next step will be drafting a formal proposal. Meetings with the DHS official involved hospital representatives as well. That includes leaders at Scripps and Sharp, who also sent a letter to federal agencies. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
Doctors are researching a new but so far rare children's illness connected to COVID-19. It's called pediatric inflammatory multisystem syndrome, or PIMS, and it is similar to Kawasaki disease. Symptoms include fever, severe rash and abdominal pain, and causes acute heart failure. At least 3 cases have been confirmed in LA, and others have been reported in New York, Massachusetts, Oregon, and overseas. Dr. Jane Burns directs the Kawasaki Disease Clinic at Rady Children's Hospital. She says the new illness is concerning, but there is good news.
The really bright news here is that the children with this very serious heart condition are responding very well, most of them, to treatment with intravenous immunoglobulin, which is what we use to treat Kawasaki disease. And they may require some steroids or some other anti-inflammatory medicines, but the heart muscle does seem to recover very quickly.
Rady treats about 80 to 100 Kawasaki patients each year. Burns says there hasn't been a local case of PIMS, but they are revisiting earlier Kawasaki patients in case it was actually the new illness. The Centers for Disease Control is developing an alert about the illness. Time is running out. That's a whistleblower's warning as he testifies before Congress about the COVID-19 crisis. Camila Bernal has more from today's hearing.
Inside the halls of Congress, a high-profile hearing.
Today, we're going to hear about the disastrous federal response to an approaching pandemic.
Representatives surrounded by cleaning supplies and hand sanitizer wear masks as they hear a whistleblower's warning about the coronavirus crisis.
2020 could be the darkest winter in modern history.
Rick Bright was the head of the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, a federal agency involved in developing a coronavirus vaccine. Bright says early this year, he sounded the alarm about a shortage of testing swabs, as well as critical medical supplies like N95 masks and ventilators. But he says his warnings were dismissed.
Lives were endangered, and I believe lives were lost. And not only that, we were forced to procure these supplies from other countries without the right quality standards.
Last month, Bright was abruptly removed from his position.
We have the world's greatest scientists. Let us lead. Let us speak without fear of retribution.
President Trump dismissing Bright's testimony.
I don't know him. I never met him. I don't want to meet him, but I watched him, and he looks like an angry, disgruntled employee.
Still, Bright has a dire prediction. The COVID-19 pandemic will get worse if the United States does not develop a national testing strategy and put in place a plan to distribute a vaccine.
Time is running out because the virus is still spreading everywhere.
Camila Bernal, KPBS News.
We're following all of the latest coronavirus developments for you at kpbs.org. Click on the Tracking COVID-19 link on our homepage and you'll be taken to a page with all of our recent reports. A proposal to eliminate San Diego's 30-foot coastal height limit in the Midway district took a step toward the November ballot. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says supporters hope it will revive the neighborhood.
Supporters of the measure say Midway is not a coastal community and should never have been included in the 1972 referendum that set the city's 30-foot coastal height limit in stone. City Council member Jen Campbell, whose district includes Midway, says the area is in desperate need of revitalization.
It can become not only an area for a new sports or entertainment arena, but also a vibrant transportation, residential, commercial, recreational, and employment area.
In 2018, the City Council updated Midway's community plan, adding the capacity for thousands of new homes. But Midway residents and business owners say they're unlikely to be built if the height limit stays in place. The council's Rules Committee voted Wednesday to draft ballot measure language that the full council could vote on this summer. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
It's warming up across the county, and there's a chance of showers in the near future. Jeff Cornish has your forecast.
Well, we have some pretty decent weather in most cases here through the rest of this week. The concern this time of the year is often tied to low clouds, and we do have some patchy low cloud cover every night carrying into the morning hours. At least some parts of the Southern California coast are going to continue to see that here into the Friday and Saturday morning time frames. Temperatures are not far from normal. It's warm in the deserts and pleasant near the coast. There's a small chance for some spotty showers nearby next week. And again, we're kind of hedging our words down here with small, spotty, nearby. We're not guaranteeing rain in San Diego, but there's a slightly better chance for a few hit or miss showers or sprinkles in about 4 days or so. Tonight, we have those low clouds that'll be returning to the coastal areas, mainly clear inland, 66 for your low into Borrego Springs. Futurecast has depicted this pretty well here. You can see this little layer of marine clouds, these shallow coastal clouds that will be lurking into the morning, and then they'll begin to push away and fizzle out as evaporation takes over and the atmosphere dries out in the lower levels of the atmosphere into the early hours of your Friday. And it looks like a nice Friday. Hot, though, in the interior, 95 in Borrego Springs. It is mid-May, after all. Mount Laguna, 65 into El Cajon, 81. Escondido, 78. Oceanside, San Diego in the mid-70s. Into the weekend we go with a dry, warm setup across the interior and pleasant weather for the coast. So let's get into the details here for our coastal 5-day forecast. Temperatures trending down slightly. Not a big change, but a slight downward trend. Monday and Tuesday, most of the time still partly sunny and generally dry. Inland areas, temperatures again down a bit, about a 10-degree drop from Sunday to Tuesday. So here it'll be a more marked difference. And into the mountainous areas, 68 down to 51. Windy, breezy, and cool Tuesday with that disturbance that could bring a few spotty showers to some. And even the deserts by Tuesday really cool down in a big way after a 98-degree high Saturday and Sunday, low 80s for Tuesday. So that is something a bit far from the norm. I'm meteorologist Jeff Cornish for KPBS News.
Experts say senior loneliness was already rampant before COVID-19, and the virus and strict stay-at-home orders have only intensified the situation, worsening the elderly's physical and emotional well-being. KPBS's Amita Sharma spotlights how a local nonprofit is stepping in to help some San Diego seniors living on the economic edge cope with the isolation.
The drivers who drop off meals for low-income seniors in San Diego first began noticing the changes a few weeks into the coronavirus pandemic. They saw some seniors, once well-groomed, looking disheveled and or disoriented.
They're observing people who they see physically deteriorating because for the last 6 weeks, they've been sitting in their small single-room occupancy unit or small apartment and unable to get out. Hi, Paul Downey.
Paul Downey is president and CEO of Serving Seniors, a San Diego-based nonprofit that focuses on the well-being of elderly people.
This was a problem we had before that's only getting worse.
More than 119,000 elderly people live alone in San Diego County. Pre-pandemic, many of the neediest among them passed their time socializing at the senior center or other public places and running errands. Under shelter-in-place orders, the activities have come to a halt, and Serving Seniors drivers are seeing the effects.
Depression, moodiness, lack of energy, not wanting to do much of anything. And so we're seeing that with the sort of the physical aspects of people just appearing to be kind of tired and whatnot. And so Our drivers are doing their best to engage.
But it's not enough. So Downey says Serving Seniors has recruited volunteers to phone residents at its affordable housing complexes every few days just to talk.
It could be talking about just what's going on in the world, but whatever it is, it's just a conversation so that there's a real live human being that you're able to be connected to.
72-year-old Esmeralda Sanchez is one of the people slated to get the calls. She says the isolation, save for the meal drop-offs, has been rough.
It just isn't natural. And someone brings food, knocks at the door, drops off food and runs away. They've got to feel like they're the ones that's contaminated.
She says just learning that she would receive the phone calls has already lifted her spirits.
I feel warm and fuzzy inside.
Because she believes the calls will go a long way toward making her feel less lonely.
Your voice echoing off the walls is not healthy.
Volunteer Eliza Villaruel, a 21-year-old UC San Diego student, says she hopes the seniors she gets paired with is less concerned about checking in and more interested in getting to know a new person.
I hope that this person is able to learn from me just as much as I'm able to learn from them.
Villaruel says she's volunteering for the calls to seniors because she wants to, quote, go beyond herself.
And I believe that within times of uncertainty, especially due to COVID-19, it's important for us to all care for each other.
USC gerontology professor Donna Benton agrees and urges everyone to pay closer attention to the seniors in their lives, to call them more often and search for signs of depression or worsening physical ailments. She says it's our societal duty to be concerned.
If we don't care about the generation that's older than us by several generations, it almost is a reflection of how we feel about our own aging process. I like a quote that I read recently in a book on ageism, and they said that ageism is a prejudice against your own future self.
Amita Sharma, KPBS News.
An internal memo by Southwest Airlines tells flight crews not to stop passengers from boarding if they refuse to wear a mask. The memo says that flight attendants should approach the situation with empathy and respect. It tells employees to inform passengers of the policy and ask them to comply, but not enforce it. Southwest's official policy says customers will be asked to wear the mask when social distancing is not possible. This was supposed to be graduation weekend for the CSU system, but stay-at-home orders have disrupted the rite of passage. KPBS producer Ben Lacey tells us how CSU San Marcos is still finding a way to celebrate.
What a difference a year makes. COVID-19 is forcing graduates at CSU San Marcos to adapt.
Hello, class of 2020.
University President Dr. Ellen Neufeld is inviting grads and their families to a rolling mobile grad party.
We don't want to forget to celebrate your accomplishments right now. So what we're going to do is have a graduation parade just for you. Graduates on parade right here at CSU SM.
One of those seniors is Michelle Tran.
I'm really excited, and I think it's a nice gesture.
She's the first in her family to graduate with a degree in global studies.
Yeah, I will definitely be attending, and my friends and I are planning to decorate our cars.
Tran has worked as an executive in CSU SM's student government with a focus on outreach to students in need. She says demand for services like the university's food pantry has surged. There's also a mental toll.
For me, I've accepted that the way that I've ended my college career is not going to be the same or the way that I had envisioned it initially. But for a lot of students, it's a big loss for them.
Tran says there is help and hopes the pressure doesn't become a barrier for other students.
This is not the time to do this alone. And this is not the time to take a step back or drop out of your college career because of these unexpected changes.
More than 4,000 grads will reach that goal this weekend. The university promises a formal commencement when it's safe to do so. Ben Lacey, KPBS News.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, a whistleblower lays out U.S. missteps as the president breaks with scientists on when to reopen schools. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
An update now on our top story. San Diego County has reached another grim milestone. 200 people have now died from the coronavirus. 113 new cases were also reported following the single biggest testing day yet. It comes as local leaders push for the ability to reopen more quickly. Also today, Governor Gavin Newsom unveiled his revised state budget, which includes more than $6 billion in cuts. The San Diego Zoo may be closed, but you can learn more about the zoo's animals in a free online video series.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Zoolittle from the world-famous San Diego Zoo. You've met Roberta. You won't believe the stories that we're going to tell you and the amazing animals we've met on our many adventures.
And the first episode of the Kids Corner series is available now on the San Diego Zoo's website. New episodes will be released every week over the next 4 months. So make sure you look up in the sky around noon tomorrow, because that's when the Air Force Thunderbirds will take to the skies over San Diego to honor healthcare workers. 6 jets will fly over about 15 hospitals. The show will last 15 minutes. You can find tonight's story on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.